Hello, welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to talk about BrickLink versus eBay. So this is the similarities and the differences between selling Lego on both those platforms. Obviously with eBay you can sell a lot more stuff, but just for the purposes of this video it will be just selling Lego. So I'll just run through very briefly in this video the ease of signing up to both those platforms and the types of things that you need to do to get registered as a seller, the fee structure on both, the ease of listing, the way that both platforms work with regards to algorithms and sales. So that will be generalised. I won't go into too much detail on these things. The kind of customer behaviours you get on both platforms. So customer behaviours in terms of the sort of stuff you will encounter at some point. The ease of feedback removal on both platforms, and then at the very end we'll conclude as to which one's possibly easier and in which ways. So first off the bat is signing up to the platforms as a business seller. It's quite similar, to be fair. You go in to either platforms, you have to register as a buyer first, so set up a buyer account and then you set up a seller account. It is, like I say, it is a fairly straightforward process on each of those websites. So it's just filling in your basic details about you and your business and stuff like that. But then obviously with both platforms you have to verify who you are and your business details. So with eBay it's about confirming who you are and becoming verified or registered. And what they want essentially is documents, which they will, I believe you register as a seller, and then they will send you eventually, and they will send you a link where you need to upload those documents. A banner appears at the top of your page saying you need to do it, and you have a time frame in which you have to do it, and those documents in general are going to be basically things that have they will have to have your name on it, so like a driver's license, a passport, or a government issued ID card, and then you will have something which shows your UTR code, which obviously this is in the UK, so that is a unique tax reference number. So that's the number you use. You go to the government gateway, you log in, and then you can basically put all your tax details in there, so you can pay your taxes essentially. So it'll all be stuff like that, and obviously then you get other levels of it. So if you are a sole proprietor of what you do, it's slightly different than if you are a partnership. It's a slightly different document. Obviously then if you are kind of I think if you're a limited company and stuff, it's a bit different. So there's all different ways that means you have of going about it. But with BrickLink, that is pretty much a similar sort of way of going about it, except with BrickLink you have to have at least one positive feedback to do it. So just bear that in mind. You will have to register as a buyer, you have to buy at least one thing, and then when you get positive feedback, you can register as a seller. But if you get a negative feedback, so essentially your feedback score has to equal at least 1. So for example, if you buy something and your first feedback is either a neutral or a negative, on feedback on BrickLink the feedback is called something slightly different. So it's not like eBay, positive, neutral and negative. The feedback, they call it actually on here praise, neutral and complaint. So that's what they call it on there. And yeah, if you have a negative value, you need to get that up to a positive again. So if your first transaction results in a negative feedback, you have to get it to a positive. So then you fill out a form that's upgraded to a seller. So it's essentially similar to eBay. And then you go through a verification process, and there's several steps to this. So the store remains closed on BrickLink until you have completed steps on new seller verification page and are verified by the admin team. So this is adding shipping methods, adding inventory. You submit required documentation. So that is proof of ID, proof of business address, and proof of your inventory. So the proof of business address, when I signed up to this, again, I submitted my UTR code stuff because it was just easier to do that. So that's only used for identity verification, etc. And then what they do next with that information is they review and then they contact you regarding the next step. So if they're not happy with the documents that you've actually given them, they will ask for more. So essentially it's similar, all except that one feedback thing. It's very, very similar. So ease of signing up, I would say that basically they're both similar, except obviously, like I say, you need a positive feedback to be a seller on BrickLink. Other than that, it's pretty much the same, isn't it? But the fee structure, so this is where we get into stuff that is a little bit more kind of detailed, really. So fee structures on eBay. So the final value fee. So unfortunately, actually, with eBay, you get a listing fee as well. And obviously, as a business seller, it depends on your, if you have a shop subscription, it depends on your subscription as to what fee you pay. But in general, we'll get onto that in a minute actually, because in general with final value fee, it's 30p of the order, so 30 pence straight off that order, and then a percentage. And it depends what category you sell in as to what the percentage is. So, for example, the business that we run, in general, what you are going to end up with for us, so we sell collectibles, we sell toys. So for collectibles, it's 10.9%. So it's 30p plus the 10.9%. And then for toys, just scrolling through here just to find that. So with toys, it is 10.9% again. So some categories it's less, the final value, so it's around more 5%. But obviously for the categories that we sell in, that's quite a high percentage in comparison to some of the other ones. And obviously with eBay, there's a lot of other fees. There are quite a lot of other fees. So you get stuff like, you get your listing fee initially, and then you get all sorts of other stuff on here. So, I mean, the best thing to do really is get a shop subscription, I think, if you're selling on eBay, because it can bring the fees down. And obviously, fees for private sellers, it's now completely changed where they don't pay them. But if you are running a business, I would suggest at least getting the basic shop subscription just to bring the fees down a little bit, maybe, is probably for the best with that one. But you get all sorts of other fees as you go along. So you get a reserve price fee. You get buy it now price is free though. A subtitle fee, gallery plus fee. The schedule function is free. And then the international site visibility, which is to maximise your items visibility in the search results on ebay.com and ebay.com. Canada, I presume that is there's a fee for that as well. So if you use that, there's another fee, and then obviously you get the final value fee. So there's a lot of fees as you go along throughout the entire thing, including your shop subscription, which obviously is tiered and has different pricing. I won't get into that because this is just really about your basic fees. But with shop subscriptions, it depends what one you want. If you want a basic, obviously it's less. And then the further up you get up the tiered system, up so I think it's Anchor Store is your top one. Basically, these are going to be more and more money as you go along. But you do get perks with them. I know a lot of resellers, they just have the basic subscription. Because with the next one up, you then get packaging vouchers and all this kind of stuff, but a lot of people aren't really that bothered about it, so a basic is probably about all you'd need. However, with BrickLink, it's completely different, totally and utterly different. You don't need a shop subscription. You don't pay a listing fee. They're all free. The only thing that you do end up paying is a sale fee, so a final value fee on your sales. And basically with these, okay, so they deal in dollars. So if you sell anything, obviously there's a conversion for that. So $0 to $500 is you get charged 3% of the order total. And then 500 to 1,000 US dollars, it's 3% of that first $500. So that's $15. And then 2% of the remaining total. And then if you sell anything over $1,000, it's 3% of that initial 500, which is $15. 2% of the 500 to 1,000, which is $10, and then 1% of the remaining total. To be fair, much better than eBay in terms of fees. And also the difference between eBay and BrickLink is with eBay, they will take the fees off of everything as you go along. So as you sell, they take the fee. And then it just gets deducted and you get what's left. They also, with the shop subscription, will take that at the same time every month. But if you don't have enough to cover it in your seller account, so you don't have any money in there, or you don't have enough money in there, they will just take it from your bank as well. They do dip in and out your bank account for that money. With BrickLink, they do not dip in and out your bank account. They don't do that at all. What they do instead is they invoice you at the same time every month. I believe it's the 5th of every month, and then you get a month to pay it. So you have to pay it by the time you get invoiced next month. So then you pay it yourself. So it's just a case of you do have to remember to then pay that fee yourself. But that means you have that little bit more control over it when you get to pay it. So basically, if you don't have enough money in your account, but you know there's some money going in, say in a week's time, you pay it in a week's time. You don't have a situation like eBay where they just take that money, regardless of whether you have enough money in your eBay account or even your bank account. They just take it anyway. So yeah, that is essentially fees. That's the basics of the fees and the basics of the invoicing that they use. So the ease of listing. So with eBay, it's all about keywords. It's all about photos, number of photos you put on. It's about item specifics. It's about description. It's about deciding whether you want that as an auction or want that as a buy it now. It's about all the other fees that you have along the way, as we've talked about. So subheadings, reserve prices, anything else you want to put on that. With BrickLink even, basically you just go on and you put in the part number, or you look up the part, you find it. You then go to a page. I can put the page actually up here. That is essentially a listing page. So this is for a basic listing page for a part. So you can see on there you get the picture of the part already there. You don't have to use your own. If you want to use your own, you can. You can also tick a box that says the BrickLink can use that photo that you've put on, but you don't have to. You can use their default. You then have item description box, which you can put any details in. That's the bigger box in the middle. You can put any details in about that particular part. And then you have a remarks box underneath that, which is essentially anything that you want to remember about that part that you're selling. And then you have new and used, and you have stuff underneath. You have the pricing. You have other boxes underneath that as well if you want to do bulk sales. And all sorts of other stuff underneath. It is slightly different if you are selling a set, because you can put whether that is complete or incomplete and all that sort of stuff with it, whether it's brand new. So yeah, that is, but this is very basic. So yeah, in terms of listing, BrickLink's quicker, a lot quicker, and I can get through so many listings on BrickLink than I could on eBay. And obviously with this GPSR stuff that's come in, that could potentially, for a lot of people, take them longer because they have to put that information in as well now. But in general, if you're selling, like we do, secondhand stuff, the vintagey stuff, you know, all the retro kind of things and stuff like that, you don't have to really worry about that. That is really for items that have come into the market from the GPSR onwards, so December 17th, 14th, one of those. I'll put it up here exactly what it was. But yeah, so that is items after that date anyway. But yeah, so for the speed of listing and stuff like that, it would be BrickLink would be quicker. So the way they both work though, both of these platforms, eBay seems to be a very algorithm driven platform. And so it depends on how many keywords you put in, how much information you put in, how many photos you put in. It all depends on the amount you list, how regular you list, and stuff like that. It depends on the effort you put in. The more effort you put in, the more details you put in, the more photos you take, etc., the more you get out of it, is the theory, because it is algorithm based. With BrickLink, it is all about, I would say, given my experience of using it, it's about more quantity of stuff that you put on. So if I listed 1,000 things today, it wouldn't matter if I didn't list another 1,000 things for another week. It wouldn't matter, because it's not driven by an algorithm that needs to continuously be fed new listings, basically. Your listing on BrickLink will not drop off the end of all of those listings. It appears in order of how much your item costs. So basically, if you have the cheapest item on there, it will appear first. If you have the most expensive, it will appear last. It will not matter as to any kind of feeding this algorithm as to whether that appears at a certain place or whether they hide that particular listing. It doesn't matter. It will appear in basically value order on a list, and it will stay there as well, which is important, isn't it? And this obviously can then impact sales, because with eBay, if you don't feed the algorithm, sometimes you just don't get the sales in. You don't get as many sales specifically. It can mean that you have listings that are hidden. They will fall off the listings, you know, the search results. They will do all that sort of stuff. And so it's important to keep that algorithm happy. Unfortunately, the algorithm is something that doesn't have a specific number on it. So it's not like I need to do 5 a day or I need to do 10 a day. It is just about essentially having a little bit of a routine with it, scheduling as well. So if you can do, say one day you can't do any listing, schedule yourself a day, maybe once a week or twice a week or however often you can do it, to just basically bung on as much as possible. So if you want to do 5 listings a day, every day, schedule. Use the schedule function. If you can do more on one day than you can another, just schedule as many as you can, really. But it does affect sales sometimes, and basically there have been other resellers who've said that they haven't listed but they've still had the sales, and some people have said that they haven't listed and they've had very few sales. It is all very all over the place, really, sometimes with that. Whereas with BrickLink, it seems to be the more that you put on BrickLink, the more you get on there, maybe the better, how good your pricing is, maybe the better quality of stuff on there, you will still get just sales. And admittedly, I haven't got a huge amount of stuff on there at the moment. I've restarted it recently. I've probably got nearly 400 things on there. I had one sale come in. It will be a slow thing, slow, gradual process. It just means continuing to put stuff on there to bulk out how much is in my store, and I will get more sales. Also, I would like to say as well, is if you want more sales on BrickLink, the best thing to do is to open it up to international rather than just have it as the UK if you're based here. Because the UK, I noticed, if you only have postage to the UK, it's 9% of your customer base who you are going to get stuff, so who you're going to sell stuff to. With international, that's 100%. But with the shipping, you can basically you can tailor make your shipping policies, so you can have different pricing for different areas or zones of the world, which you can then obviously post to, and you can structure your shipping, and you can have instant checkout. You can have you can also have invoiced checkout as well. And the way I do it on there is I have instant checkout for the UK. So I have a set charge on there at instant checkout, which will cover it if it's a large letter or a parcel. Basically, with the international, I have invoice only, so that when I do get in, when I get a request for an order from an international customer, what I can then do is I can basically invoice them for the correct amount of postage, rather than having a set charge for them, because that set charge may not cover the postage, or it might be too much. So that's my preference for that. Also, with BrickLink, you can do quotes, so you can accept quotes. I accept quotes for everything that I sell. If somebody doesn't want to commit to buy, but they want to know how much it would cost them to buy, you can then quote them for not just the charge of the item, but also the shipping to their specific country. And it's all then transparent for them before they buy it. However, just bear in mind they might not buy it, because they might then go somewhere else and get it for a better price, or they might find more stuff they want from someone else, so they might just kind of ignore what you've quoted. But that's another thing you can do on BrickLink that you can't do on eBay. You can't reserve items on eBay. You can't quote. You can't do anything like that. They can obviously make you an offer on eBay, but if you accept that offer, they have to buy it anyway. Whereas BrickLink, they don't have to buy stuff from you if they don't want to, if you have that quote. Which kind of leads nicely on to customer behaviours, really. Because on BrickLink, I'll start with BrickLink, because the customer behaviours, it seems to be quite a steady sort of thing, really, with customer behaviour, which is that people, if they ask for quotes, they might not buy stuff. So that's one thing you just got to remember, is if you make the effort to kind of dig everything out and weigh it and get exactly how much it's going to cost in postage, you might not make that sale. So that's one thing you've got to be aware of. You can adjust that so you don't accept quotes from people, but you will still find that basically, especially like, because I offer obviously international postage on an invoice only basis, they don't know the postage cost until I put that in the invoice and send them the invoice. They might not then pay for it anyway. And you get a situation where they become what's called an MPB, so that's a non-paying buyer. After 7 days, you can register that particular order as a non-paying buyer. That will become a strike. When they do it once, they get a warning. When they do it twice, they get a warning. When they do it a third time, they can't use their account anymore. It's pretty like savage in terms of, how many they get 3 strikes and they're out essentially with that. But you will get non-paying buyers. The more you sell, the more you get. Basically, it's kind of how it is. I used to, when I sold on there, I think it was about maybe a couple of years ago, before I used to sell quite a lot of stuff, and I used to have not a huge amount of non-paying buyers, but there was enough for me to kind of think like, this is getting a bit silly. And unfortunately, for that 7 days, that stuff that they have bought, it isn't for sale in your store. It is reserved essentially for them to pay for. They don't pay after 7 days. You can then put non-paying buyer, and they will then get an opportunity to either pay or not. If they don't, all that stock goes back in your inventory and you can sell it on again. But just bear that in mind. With eBay, obviously you get a huge amount of selling behaviours. So you get people who they won't pay. You get people who will message you continuously before, during and after a sale. You get people who will want partial refunds. You will get loads and loads of people doing lots of different things on there. So it is a little bit more of a broad kind of thing of all these different types of behaviours you get. And the more you sell, the longer you're on there, the more you'll encounter a lot of stuff. When we first opened the store and we had a low feedback rating, there were people on there who would fish for partial refunds on a regular basis because they see you're new to being a seller and a business account, and they think, okay, this person might not know that they don't have to issue a partial. They can ask for this particular item back, but I'm going to ask for a partial, hoping they won't know that. Obviously, as you go along, you realise you need to get them to open a return. Don't just give them a partial refund. Trouble is, the more you do it, the more you get into that habit, you'll encounter so much of that, and you will end up giving partials left, right and centre. So just don't. I think a lot of people learnt the hard way. Just get them to open a return, get them to return it, give them the refund that way. And obviously with the feedback, the two platforms are different. So with eBay, people will just leave feedback, negatives, neutrals, whatever they want. Even if basically you think a transaction's gone smoothly, one day all of a sudden you've got negative from that person. Getting it removed, especially if you think it's unwarranted, it's unjustified, can be quite difficult. So a lot of people have said use Facebook, contact them via Facebook, get them to remove it that way. Apparently they're really good if you go through Facebook. I haven't used that and I don't know whether that's true, but in the main, trying to get feedback removed can be difficult. There are certain times in which it is easier than others, I suppose, and that is if it is abusive. That's if it is completely unwarranted in terms of the content of the feedback, comment, and also feedback extortion. So if they have previously sent messages that will make you realise they are trying to get something, or they will leave that negative, you can basically get that removed on that basis. With BrickLink though, it seems to be a little bit more straightforward. I did have, when I first started the BrickLink store, I had somebody leave me a negative. Obviously, I won't go into the absolute minute detail of the story, but essentially the negative and the comment that they left was about the post service. It wasn't about the actual experience buying from my store. It was about the post service. And so because of that, I was able to put in a feedback removal request, and I just put, this is more about the post service than it is about me, and it got removed the next day. You know, it was just a case of like, it was a lot more straightforward in terms of that. So although my experience of getting the feedback removed from BrickLink is obviously, it's just that one experience, it just seemed a little bit easier. I didn't feel like I was jumping through hoops with them. You know, I did feel like it was just a case of, okay, this is what the feedback says, you know, and I don't think it's about the experience they had buying from me. It was about other stuff. What, you know, can you remove it? And they just did. So it just seems a little bit more straightforward. So basically, to conclude, I have put here that BrickLink, so to sum up, there's no listing fee. The fees are not as, there's not as many fees for lots of different facets. You just get a fee for that final selling, you know, amount. You just get that. And the way that you pay that fee is also a little bit more kind of convenient, I suppose, for a seller, because you've got more control over when you pay it. There's no shop subscription either. So basically your outlay on BrickLink to set up and run that shop is going to be less. I mean, it is going to be less. So basically, the way I see it with that is it is kind of easier to maintain a shop. However, you have to have a lot of stuff on it. So you do have to list anything and everything. I'm quite choosy about what I list on there, but obviously there are going to be shops which have a lot more. I did once look up how much stock you would have to basically enable you to make a living out of BrickLink, and it said that your inventory needs to consist of, I think it was at the time, it might have changed since then, but it was between, I think, about 50 to 80,000 different things to actually make it work as a business. So like I say, I've got nearly 400 at the moment. That's not even the tip of the iceberg. So you do need to be listing a lot of stuff, regularly list really, although you're not feeding an algorithm, just basically to get a lot on there. So with eBay, you do have your listing fee, you have a lot of other fees as well that are attached to it, depending on what other things you want to do. If you have a shop subscription fee, you obviously pay for that, but you do get the allowance for free listings and then reduced fees for listings and other things to go with it. But fees are taken automatically. They are taken per purchase, per item that you sell, so they will take those off there. Obviously promoted listings as well. If you've promoted that item, they'll take a percentage depending on what you've put. So I do actually have a story about somebody on Reddit who made the mistake with promoted listings. They sold an item, they were in America, and they sold an item for about $700, I think it was. And basically what they had done is they had set promoted listings without realising how it works. So a lot of other resellers, I've noticed, they will set their promoted listing to 3%. There are, when you go and do promoted listings, they do recommend a percentage. A lot of the time it can be sort of quite high, so it's about 12%, even more than that sometimes. But this one particular person who sold this item on Reddit thought, if I want to promote the hell out of this and I want to reach as many people as possible, I'm going to set it as high as I can to reach as many people to sell it. And they set it to 100%. So what happened was, when they sold that item, they didn't get any money from it because eBay took 100% of the item's value as having been promoted. Unfortunately, this person then realised they were in debt to eBay. So they hadn't made a penny out of the sale. In fact, if anything, they paid to sell their item. So they then got charged the fee, the final value fee as well, which you can imagine for 700 plus was, fair sort of wedge of money. So 30p plus a percentage. And yeah, they actually became in debt to eBay. So just bear that in mind when you do promoted listings. Don't promote them for too much. Most resellers do about 3%. I think it's what we've done as well, is about 3%. But in conclusion, though, which one's better? Well, if you've got Lego, you're selling Lego. I have noticed on eBay the price of Lego is more. And, perhaps for some certain things you can get more money out of eBay. However, just bear in mind that they do charge you a lot of fees and stuff like that. And if you have a shop subscription as well, you will, obviously, you've got to factor all these sorts of, monetary fees in as well. So essentially what you might be getting is round about what you would get off BrickLink, depending on how you price it. And also with, with BrickLink, you might have much more competition. So your pricing has to be more realistic. You can't just bung in a hugely expensive price and expect that to sell if other people are selling it for, say, £1, a couple of quid cheaper. And also with BrickLink, things sell for a few pence sometimes. Sometimes you will get things sell for a penny, sometimes even a fraction of a penny. So just bear that in mind too. That's also why you need a lot of stuff on there, because stuff is that much cheaper. So realistically, if you want to sell on BrickLink, you need to have international postage, I think, to open up your sales to the entire world, 100% of the world. They can all buy from you and stuff, so that would help your sales. It just seems to me like BrickLink is just easier to deal with on so many different levels in comparison sometimes to eBay. And, you know, with the fees thrown in and all that sort of thing, it does come across as a slightly more attractive option for selling Lego, and dealing with them as well is a bit easier, as well as I've noticed frequently asked questions on BrickLink, and guides for doing stuff are far more easier to find. So if you want to set up a store or you want to find out anything, there's a frequently asked questions section that is really easy to use, and you can just go on and find out step by step what you need to know. With eBay, sometimes information can be a little bit more difficult to get hold of. If you've ever used QuickBooks is exactly the same in terms of difficulty of finding the exact information that you need sometimes, and you do have to go on the wider kind of, you know, Google search to find this information. But all in all, eBay is good if you want to sell loads of things, but I would say BrickLink is quite good for the Lego, to be fair, and it might be the better option. But I'm probably a bit biased because it's what I'm dealing with now, just BrickLink, but I would say BrickLink is really good for Lego. So yeah, if you're thinking about opening a BrickLink store, I would say just do it. And you can even see how it goes for you. It might not work for you. You might not get the sales you want. You might not really enjoy the process of listing and having to list a lot. But it's worth giving a go, especially on the basis of those fees as well, because that's quite nice, isn't it? Not to be paying a huge amount of money to this entity, you know, that basically has a very fussy algorithm, etc. as well. But yeah, anyway, so that is basically what I feel really about the comparison between BrickLink and eBay is in terms of selling Lego. So our next video will probably just be a bit of a catch up, maybe it'll be a bit of a chat about things that we've been doing recently, etc. But yeah, this was just really sort of an off-the-cuff video, I suppose, about, well, what I'm doing now. So anyway, thank you for watching, and subscribe, like the video, turn on notifications, make sure you switch it to all so you get informed of everything, and yeah, see you next time.